Welcome back to the Nerdy Grill and welcome to a brand new movie review. Now, this is a little bit late to the game because this movie has been out for a couple of days now, but it was only my first opportunity last night to go and watch this movie. I am, of course, talking about Scream 7. Yes, Scream is still going on, and we are on the 7th movie, with an 8th movie I'm fairly certain has more or less been greenlit. So this series is still going strong, at least in some people's eyes. I know this one has had a few mixed reviews. I know some people have said this is the worst Scream yet, with some people then also saying this is one of the most creative Screams yet. Where do I sit in this argument? Well, I sit somewhere in the middle in terms of whether I think this is a good movie or not, because there was some really good positives about this movie that I really did enjoy. I was never really bored in this movie, but there were a few things that did sort of annoy me about this movie. And I will admit, the climax of the movie, so your final, say, 20 to 30 minutes of the movie, did sort of let me down a little bit. And there was a twist that also wasn't a twist, because you could kind of see that they were going to go down that route. That really did annoy me, especially in terms of modern media and the way things are going in terms of theatre, in terms of artwork, and in terms of movie direction. But without any further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this into two different sections, and I'm going to talk about the positives of the movie, and I'm also going to talk about then the negatives of the movie, and then I'm going to come together and I'm going to give you my overall final thoughts on this Scream film and where I'd kind of place it in terms of the Scream franchise, which, as you can see behind me, I do have all my previous Scream movies. Got Scream 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. I'm still trying to hunt down Scream 4, so hopefully I'll get that one day. But yeah, so sit back, relax, as I give you my review on the brand new Scream movie, Scream 7. So kicking off this movie review, we're going to talk about the positive section of the movie. So all the things that I found were interesting or enjoyed about the movie. Now, I think one thing that we can all agree on, and the internet has collectively more or less come to this agreement, is that Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, it was fantastic. Yeah, Sidney Prescott has been in practically all of the Scream movies, apart from the appearance in Scream 6. She wasn't in Scream 6. And in the movie, they really make it clear that she wasn't in Scream 6, through the killer's response and through everyone talking about what went on in New York, and obviously Sidney sort of not really fully understanding what's going on, only knowing via like news reports and TV reports and from hearsay from people. So they really make that clear that she wasn't there. But this is a really Sidney Prescott focused movie to make up for the fact that she wasn't in Scream 6. And Neve Campbell does a fantastic job. Her performance is stellar. Like, from start to finish, you can tell that she is trying to be this protective mother. She is this action hero when she needs to be. You know, she really does carry this movie. And so I think her acting in particular for this movie was absolutely fantastic. And I would say the acting of more or less all of our core characters that we've got in this movie was also really good. Isabel May, who plays her daughter Tatum, I thought was also really, really good. You know, this person who wants to sort of find out more about her mum's past, who wants to take part in her mum's life a lot more, wants her mum to sort of open up more about her, but also wants to live her life at the same time. She's got that perfect blend and does become sort of an action hero, a bit like Sidney by the end of the movie, because they sort of tried to build her up to be the new Sidney by the end of the movie, especially from the killer's perspective. So I thought she did a really fantastic job. We've got Courtney Cox, who again comes back as Gale Weathers, which obviously, because Gale Weathers sort of took more of the spotlight in Scream 6, she makes that very clear to Sidney in this particular movie. Like, why weren't you there? It would have been great if you were there, you know. And they sort of have this sort of relationship in terms of, like, we need to stick together. We are friends. Yes, we have differences, and we sort of see things in a different light, because obviously I work as like a news reporter, although she's like an ex-news reporter in this one. But we're on the same side at the end of the day, and they really got to work together. She does sort of vanish towards the end of the movie, Courtney Cox's Gale Weathers. Just at the end, she gets left in one of the news studios while Sidney's going to track down her daughter, and then gets left for the last half an hour of the movie, which I thought was a bit annoying, a bit weird. But I thought her character was also really good. I love the way that she enters the movie. She enters the movie by running over one of the Ghostface killers, and I just thought it was hilarious. Like, yeah, really, truly badass moment for Gale Weathers to enter the movie, and I thought that was really, really good. She enters the movie about half an hour in, so I thought she was really good as well. Now, we have to also talk about, because this was huge and people were talking about it and speculating about how is this possible, what's going to happen. I will be talking about this slightly more in my negatives aspect, but I gotta give credit where credit's due. I'm, of course, talking about Matthew Lillard as Stu Mocker, which, by the way, absolutely fantastic performance. He was crazy. Every time he appeared, I wanted him to stay on the screen for as long as possible. He was unbelievably good, and it was so short-lived. I really wish we had a lot more from him. But visually, he looked terrifying. The way he would snap, the way he would go from calm to crazy to I'm literally going to kill you, Sydney, I thought was terrifying. You really felt the fear in Sydney's eyes. She was petrified when he was either calling her or he was on the screen for her to see. And it really drove Sydney round the bend in the movie. And I thought he did a fantastic job. And then all the rest of the support cast I thought was really good. So in terms of acting, I thought it was really, really good. I also loved the tension that this movie builds up as well. I thought some of the kills in this movie were really creative and really gory. Like, they really emphasized the gore. Like, one of the victims gets his head impaled on one of those bar pulleys that you get for alcohol, and then because of the weight of his head, it sort of pulls it down and the alcohol pours from his mouth, but because obviously it's going through him, it comes out as blood, and you just see Ghostface just standing there like really proud of himself. At the start of the movie, there's a couple who go to this it's basically this like Scream, this stab experience where they've done up all the old house to look like the replica house, and they've got all memorabilia and previous bodies and kills, this, that, and the other. And Ghostface ends up coming to that place, murdering them, and in some of the most intense ways possible. Like the poor woman who gets killed, she's hanging from a chandelier. Ghostface is supposedly dead on the floor. He's pretending, and as she slips from the chandelier, he turns, sits up, and is pointing the knife directly up, so she lands directly on the knife, and then he burns the house to the ground and walks away from it, a bit like Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight. You know, it's like cool guys don't look at explosions sort of thing. It was really cool, and then it gets the title card, so I thought that was really good as well. There was also more intense scenes with some of Tatum's friends who they were performing this show, and she was caught on wires because she was like this fairy character, and Ghostface just coming down and slicing her bit by bit, and she was swinging uncontrollably, and you could see the fear and tension in her eyes. It really did build that up really well, and that is something that I think the Scream franchise does so well, and why it is still going on 7 movies later. Is it's still got creative ways to make you feel tense, to make you feel scared, despite knowing exactly what your main antagonist looks like in terms of visual appearance. It still finds ways to make Ghostface terrifying. You know, so I think that's all fantastic as well. The musical score, the locations that we used was all perfect, brilliant. I thought the pacing of the movie was fairly good. It was a bit ropey at times, but I overall fairly enjoyed it. But yeah, so I must admit, there was some really good things about this movie, and I did like the character growth of Tatum in particular. I thought she was really good, like I said, starting off like almost in the unknown, and then becoming basically like Sydney and helping her mum take down the main Ghostface killers at the end of this movie. So I thought that was really good, and it does sort of set up that maybe she could take the lead in the next movie, and maybe that's where they're going to go, because, you know, we've had 7 movies now, 6 of them have included Neve Campbell as in a big way, so perhaps maybe it is time to pass on the torch, although, let's be real, we all want to see Sydney keep going and kicking ass, don't we? But yeah, so those are my overall positives of the movie. But I am going to have to talk about some of the negatives, or things that did let me down a little bit about the movie, before I come together and give it an overall score. So let's jump on over now and talk about some of the negatives, sadly, that I did point out within watching Scream 7. So now that we've talked about the positives, we have to now mention about the negatives. And sadly, there are some negatives within Scream 7. And they're mostly negatives that come from what happens and what will tend to happen if a franchise tends to go above 3 movies. When you start to get to like the 4th movie in a franchise, you do tend to notice these problems a lot more because they're trying to find new ways of being creative, and sometimes that does mean pulling up old ground, and sometimes they forget what came before, and so it does spoil it. And so one of the things I think is pretty obvious in the Scream franchise is their over-reliance on old tropes. They even call that out in the movie with Gail's little sidekick characters that she has, who call it all the tropes. You know, I still remember, because it was Scream 6 and Scream 5 that I went to see in the cinemas, and them all the time constantly talking about these tropes of who could the killer be? Well, they're going to talk about the boyfriend. They're going to talk about this, you know, to never go alone, to watch the phones, this, that, and the other. And they go over those tropes again. And so it does feel really repetitive and rinse and repeat. And it's like, it's almost like they're copying and pasting from their previous script and just tweaking like the names and tweaking like the locations that they're saying these things in. And so it does feel a bit dull. And then they do the bit of the cop out and in terms of, or, you know, oh, it could have been the boyfriend because Tatum's boyfriend does get caught pretending that he might be one of the killers, and they do all this, that, and the other. And it just does get a bit frustrating that it feels like they constantly tread old ground, but that happens when you've got a franchise that has been going on for this long and has this many movies and relies on these tropes. It does get a bit too tropey. The typical thing of like either cars won't start, or they fall to the ground and for some reason they can't get up, or the killer who seems to be like totally invincible when really at the end of the day they're just a regular person. And things like chairs and getting shot and this, that, and the other don't kill them. Yes, in some examples in this movie you find out they're wearing like bulletproof vests and stuff like that, but there's some things that are just inexplicable, and I'm like, that really breaks the immersion, because this is not a supernatural style horror movie. This is just your typical like serial killer, you know. So it really does break an immersion, and that's how I felt for a lot of the movie. But I think the biggest problem with this movie, for me anyway, was like the hype that was about it, but also the way they executed the potential hype and return of a character. And then, like I said, the climax of the movie is what really let it down. Matthew Lillard as Stu Macher was teased, was leaked, was talked about for ages. And when he appeared on the screen, when he called Sydney about, I want to say 10-15 minutes into the movie, I was like, wow, this is going to be great. This is going to be intense. I want to see him in the Ghostface outfit, tear off the mask, where, you know, I want to see all that. And I want to see basically what you get in like Halloween, you know, where you got Michael Myers versing Jamie Lee Curtis's character. I wanted to see that with Neve Campbell and Matthew Lillard's characters. I wanted that in this movie, but we never got that, because you have a couple of phone calls with him. Maybe they're potentially setting up that he could come back in Scream 8, but he's actually not the killer, but they actually double down on it, and they really hammer that he was just an AI. Yeah, they go into the AI territory here, which, okay, let's be real, it was inevitable at some point, because obviously AI is getting big, there is fears of AI, deep fakes get made, this, that, and the other, and people use it to terrorize people sometimes, you know, so it was gonna happen, but I just don't like that that's the direction that they went in, and basically all Matthew Lillard's character was, so Stu's character in this movie he was just an AI creation. He wasn't actually him. It wasn't him at all, and I just don't like that, and that meant we never got to see him, and so it really, really annoyed me, because I don't like AI as it is, but I'm not a fan of them using it in that aspect. But maybe they could, the fact that they wanted Matthew to be in this movie could hint that maybe he will actually come back. Because I was thinking, how on earth is he going to survive? And they made that clear in the movie. It's like, come on, it can't be Stu. We know he's dead. You know, we buried his body, this, that, and the other. But just the teasing and all really, really annoyed me. And then the reveal of who the killers actually were in the movie really was just like, huh? Like, normally you do get an idea of who the killers could be, and it's normally characters that you followed through the whole movie, or you see them being really sneaky through the whole movie. But this one, they just sort of plucked the two characters out of thin air, in terms of it. Like, the two characters that were the killers in this movie, so this is a spoiler now, so if you don't want to be spoiled about who the killers are, although if you're watching this movie, this review, you probably already know, but the two killers in this movie, one of them was actually Sydney's neighbour, you know, who was in 4 or 5 scenes. She never really showed any proper signs of being the killer for this particular movie. We did get a crazy vibe from her, but they didn't make it very apparent in this movie, which maybe might have been the idea, you know. And then the second killer was one of the asylum workers who had housed the previous killers, this, that, and the other, and was hinting at Stu's character being locked away in there. So I was just like, but we'd only seen him in like one scene. So I was like, why is he the main mastermind? I don't really understand the connection there. So I thought that was really annoying. And also sometimes the kills or the attacks of some of the characters, like Tatum's dad and Sydney's husband, got attacked by Ghostface and like stabbed really violently multiple times and somehow managed to survive. I think it would have been more impactful for the climax if they had say, this is how it would have been better for me, is if, say, the dad had actually died, sadly, and then we found out that it was Stu. Because then that would have really fired up Sydney, probably fired up Tatum as well, and you could have had a proper brawl between the three of them. And I thought that would have been fantastic, but no, they sort of like did the cop-out thing of, actually, no, he's alive, you know, and, oh, it's not Stu, you know, it's just, I just didn't like it. And I just felt there was also long gaps where you sort of forgot that you were watching a Scream movie because Ghostface just wouldn't appear for such a long time. Like, and yeah, I was just a bit let down of the final confrontation because the final villain at the end took off the Ghostface costume and was just basically like 2 women scrapping in the garage, and that just felt very just felt a bit lackluster and dull, and it just sort of ended on a bit of a whimper, if you ask me, to be honest. So I wasn't really too fussed on the ending. I thought that was a bit of a letdown, if I'm honest. But yeah, so let me now collectively come together and give you my final thoughts on Scream 7. So, overall, what are my thoughts on Scream 7? Look, I thought overall there was some fantastic acting through the movie. I thought Neve Campbell did a fantastic job as Sydney. I thought Tatum was a fantastic character for the movie. I thought the relationship between Sydney and Tatum was fantastic through the whole thing. Great mother-daughter bond. And even the father character as well was really good, being the chief of police. You know, I thought, you know, bringing Matthew Lillard back as Stu, even though it was through AI, I thought was really, really good. And I thought he was intense and crazy and scary and really hamming it up. And I thought his performance was fantastic. Courtney Cox was really good then again as Gail Weathers. I thought she was fantastic and it was great to see her again. So I thought the acting wise was great. I thought some of the kills from Ghostface were really gory, really dark, really creative, and I really enjoyed that. But I just thought the inclusion of the AI, I thought the pacing was off a little bit, and I thought the last probably 20 to 30 minutes of the movie, so the climax of the movie was a bit of a letdown overall, which sort of brings down my score. I think maybe the Scream franchise sort of now is sort of coming to an end. I think maybe the fact they've greenlit an 8th movie, maybe they should probably stop there, otherwise they risk it really going into the dirt. So I think maybe the next one should be the last one, and maybe you could bring back Stu properly. That would be really intense to end the franchise where it began. But I think overall it was a fairly enjoyable movie within the Scream franchise, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 in my personal opinion. Well, I hope you did enjoy my review on Scream 7. If you did, please like it by giving it a thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts on Scream 7. But keep all comments respectful, please. And subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is the Nerdy Grill signing off. I hope you've had an amazing day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.